Hey y'all, it's Betsy with Happily Ever After Etc. and welcome back to another Cricut project. So today I am actually going to be showing you how to put iron-on 5 different materials. I love iron-on. It is one of my favorite materials. Either iron-on or infusible ink is probably the top thing that I use in this craft room the most. Reach for it all the time. I've literally got a roll of this Sports Flex metallic iron-on my top 3 things I reach for rack. Like, I've got bins of materials in here that I use all the time, but these are the top 3 things I reach for. So that tells you something. But did you know that you can put iron-on way more than just fabric? I know a good old-fashioned t-shirt is probably the first project you've reached for. Maybe you made a sign, maybe you made wine glasses like I did. Who knows? But t-shirt is definitely up there for one of the top things that people make very first when they get their Cricut. But it's not the only thing that you can put iron-on on. There's actually 5 different materials that you can use. Fabric, metal, leather, cardstock or paper, and wood. And today I'm going to be showing you a little snippet of how to do each and every one of these. Now don't worry if you need a fuller, let's crack out Cricut design space, go over the SVG, cut the materials, weed the materials, back to basics tutorial. I'm going to be releasing one for each of these every week for the next, I guess, 5 weeks because we've got 5 projects. But today we're doing an overview just on how to apply the iron-on. For these projects, I used a combination of my Cricut Easy Press. This is the Easy Press 2, and my little baby mini Easy Press. Mainly because of size differences. So when putting iron-on on this cardstock peach, you could use the Easy Press 2, but I decided to use the mini because you want to make sure everything's lined up, nothing shifts while you're working on it, and it's easier just to cover that bad boy halfway, make sure he's pressed, do the other side. So, you know, depending on which machine you have, whether it's just an iron or it's an Easy Press, you can make any of these work, but those are the main 2 things I'll be using today. We're going to show you the actual settings, the heat settings for each project. I'm going to be walking you through how I used them and how to apply them to your next project. So let's go ahead and get started with our t-shirt. For each of these little snippets, I'm going to cut out all of the beginning parts. So we're going to start fresh from cutting out our iron-on. It is already weeded. It is ready to go. We're simply going to be applying it to our project base and how that differs. We're using the exact same roll of that Sports Flex metallic iron-on, either in the rose gold or the blue. There's also a purple if you prefer the purple. But for most of these, I obviously prefer rose gold for everything, but I did use blue for a few things. So same exact material, 5 different settings, 5 different materials. This has been a fun project to do, and I can't wait for y'all to see each individual video on how to do these the drawn out long way. But for now, we're going to jump into fabric, which is our first material, and I will show you how to put iron-on a t-shirt. Let's get started.
All right, y'all, so let's start with our t-shirt. We're going to be putting this I'd Rather Be Gardening decal that we cut out of our iron-on directly on a Cricut t-shirt with my Easy Press 2. I've already set it, as you can see, to 305 degrees for 30 seconds. If you ever have any questions about what settings to put your Easy Press on for your project, you can simply go to the Cricut Heat Guide. It is online and it will tell you exactly what settings to use. It is a lifesaver because I can never remember from project to project what I'm supposed to do. So let's go ahead. We are going to set up our t-shirt. We want it to be straight to our heat mat here, smooth, and there we go. Not just straight at the top, but straight to both sides as well. So once it is straight, we will go ahead and smooth it out, make sure there's no wrinkles, make sure there's no bumps or problems underneath. Then we are going to preheat our surface here, and that basically means for about 5 seconds, we're going to run that easy press across the surface and just warm it up for our decal. Perfect. It also helps to get the wrinkles out. Now we will take our decal and we're going to find the center. I typically like to take that center and use 4 fingers down from the neck, and that is where I will place my decal. For this specific one, since there's a bit of a space at the top where there are smaller designs, I did move it up just a little, more like 3 fingers. Then you'll smooth it on. On fabric specifically, the carrier sheet is usually sticky enough to stick to your material without any problems, but for some reason, this specific roll of iron-on is not wanting to stick to anything. That carrier sheet is just not sticking. So when the carrier sheet doesn't stick, I use a bit of heat-resistant washi tape to stick it in place. You don't want that design to move while you are using your easy press to bond it in place. Otherwise, you'll have wrinkles, or you may have things that don't bond right, or just bond all wonky. It's never good. All right, so once everything is set, lined up, good to go, I'm gonna lift our easy press up, put it straight down, hit that button to start the timer, and now we're going to hold steady, even pressure down onto that handle the entire 30 seconds. And this is one of the best parts of an easy press, is that you can put even pressure across the entire heat plate, and it's going to put even heat across the entire heat plate as well, as opposed to an iron that really only gets hot in the very, very middle of the iron. When it's done, you're going to lift it straight up, put it back on the base. You always want to put on the base so you don't burn anything else on your work surface. And now we are going to let this cool. Once it is not hot to the touch, we will start to peel back that carrier sheet to reveal the design. So give it a second. Perfect. Make sure you're holding down that bottom layer. Take up that heat-resistant tape, and technically this heat-resistant tape is for infusible ink, but I use it for anything that needs to get hot. There's no reason you can't. You don't want to use Scotch tape or other regular tapes that will melt. Especially not something that will melt to your easy press. Go slow, and as you pull that carrier sheet back, you should reveal that design. It should be perfect. If for some reason part of the design did not stick, you want to go slow enough to catch that, and you'll just want to hit it with a bit more heat and make sure that it's bonded. But as you can see, the heat settings were perfect. No issues here, and the entire design is bonded across the front. All right, so there you go, your very first t-shirt. Look at that. Look at that. I love the way this metallic iron-on looks on pretty much everything. And these Cricut t-shirts, like, they are so soft. They're one of my favorites, these gray ones. The white ones are nice too. I've done plenty of those, but they're a bit more snug fitting. So just depends on what you like. I want my t-shirts to be comfortable. All right, I'm going to give y'all a couple close-up shots, and then we will move on to our next material, which is leather. Okay, ready for leather. So for this little project, we are doing a leather traveler's notebook. Essentially, it is a little notebook that you can put different notebooks or booklets in and decorate however you like. I like to use mine for a scrapbook. We're simply going to add our Once Upon a Time iron-on decal we cut out to the front. So once again, I found the center and I am placing it directly on our leather. Once we make sure it is lined up and straight to the edge, we will secure it with a bit of heat-resistant washi tape. The carrier sheet definitely does not stick to the leather. Now that could just be because this carrier sheet doesn't want to stick to anything, or it could be the type of leather. So it is hard to say sometimes. Now, leather can be a bit tricky when it comes to iron-on, mainly because it doesn't always bond well with the adhesive that is used in iron-on. So when you are doing any kind of leather project, if you are worried that the iron-on will not bond properly, you can always use vinyl, but it's best just to test a bit before you go ahead and put your decal right on the front of your beautiful notebook. So make sure if you need to do a test run, you do a test run. I am pretty happy with my little decal, so I'm simply going to put it on the front. Any adhesive problems that I might have, I could always cover in the future with another decal or with some felt flowers. I like to put felt flower swags on the front of my notebooks, so I'm not worried about it either way. I'm going to enjoy this while I'm using it, and in the future, if I want to change it, I'll change it. Now, iron-on typically will not come off of leather once you have put it on. It is a lot more permanent than vinyl because it does bond to the surface. So keep that in mind. But again, I think this is going to be really cute. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on our little easy press mat. Make sure it is stuck down. And for this project, we are going to use the Easy Press Mini. I went ahead and used it on the highest setting, but I'm going to recommend you use it on the lowest setting. I think that would react better to the adhesive used. So either way, you are going to start in the middle, go towards the outside. That way you don't leave any air bubbles in the leather, in the iron-on, and everything bonds smoothly. So make sure you go over the entire design, pressing down with even pressure across the entire surface, and make sure you are sticking over the carrier sheet. You do not want to heat up your leather directly. So there you go. Once again, we are going to let this sit until it cools down, and then we will start to do a cool peel of that carrier sheet. Anything that does not look bonded, any of those extra little edges or letters, you'll want to go ahead and press down. It is finally cool enough, so we're just going to start with the corner. Always peel and hold and peel and hold. If anything is not stuck down, you can always reheat it, but you want to go slow, especially with designs like this where all of the letters are connected so that you don't rip anything. Voila! A lot of times with the leather, any kind of discoloration will fade with time. So that's a big part of why I'm not super worried about this. You can also see when I shifted the front there, that kind of shine that shows up really only shows up in bright lighting. So I have my Cricut Bright 360 on right now to kind of help with the lighting. My craft room is very dark. So in natural sunlight, that color shift, the shininess is a lot less visible. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in my notebooks here. I'm actually taking this notebook, this entire traveler's notebook, on a trip taking next month with my dad to Alaska, little cruise. So I always like to take notebooks for journaling and scrapbooking when I go on these kinds of trips. I can put pictures and mementos and ticket stubs, all kinds of stuff in them, and journal what's happening as we go. So that's always fun. I have a few other embellishments that I've made. I'll link the tutorials for most of these down below, including the cover. I actually made this leather notebook cover. So if you want to make one with the same pockets and the scalloped edges, you can make your own. They are pretty easy. A few paper clips. This has nothing to do with iron-on. I just could not wait to put this together. And y'all are always asking to see what the finished piece looks like, so here you go. Looks like this. Last pieces, a few bows for the top, a few paper clips for the bottom. Especially on a trip, I like to have paper clips so that I can flip specifically to a page that I'm working on. And this is why I picked the blue iron-on out of this metallic sampler. So I thought it would go really well with these notebooks and accessories as opposed to the pink. Because you know I love the rose gold, but look at that teal. Ah. All right. Looks perfect. Once upon a time, a girl and her dad went to Alaska. All right, so from here, I will put some pretty finished shots, and then we will go on to the next project, which is going to be iron-on wood. A little wood sign never hurt anybody. Okay, y'all, we are headed back to our Easy Press 2 to put this adorable The Earth Laughs in Flowers SVG we cut out on our wooden sign. So for this little guy, well, he's actually one of our bigger designs. For this big guy, we're going to set our Easy Press 2 to 300 degrees and 40 seconds. Take our SVG and our sign. So I'm using a wooden sign. It is reversible. We are going to be putting it on the painted side. There is an unpainted sign as well. You can put a SVG iron-on decal on both plain wood or painted wood. If you're doing painted wood, you just want to make sure that it has been painted and dry for over 24 hours because adhesive and paint just like to stick together and not to wood. Learned that the hard way many times. You also run the risk with a painted sign that if there's any kind of issues, the adhesive may not bond as well. That paint may come up as on a pure wooden sign. Typically, if you're painting it yourself, that's not an issue. You know which kind of paint you're using. You know the whole sign is painted the same way. You're good to go. This one I bought pre-painted, and obviously somebody put a sticker on the front, as you'll see, because there's a spot of adhesive that gives us trouble. It's okay. We just do some touch-up paint and everything works. But paint is not a problem, adhesive is. Iron-on never wants to bond to other adhesive like the leftover sticker residue from a project. Once we get this guy lined up, taped down, ready to roll, we will use our Easy Press. Lift it straight up, straight down, easy, easy, easy. Even pressure across the front, and we want to hit the button to start our timer for 40 seconds. Since this is a wooden sign, I didn't bother with a heat press mat. Your mat is really to protect your surface, but it also helps to reflect the heat back up into your material. So for a t-shirt, for example, you're not only heating the piece up from the top with your Easy Press, but that mat actually helps reflect the heat up and kind of seal the iron-on to your piece from both sides. For something like this wooden sign, the heat wouldn't come back up from your heat press mat. It stops in the wood. So you're really only using it to protect your surface in that matter. And we don't need to. The wood's going to protect the surface just fine. Lift that baby straight up, right back on our protective base. And now we will let this cool. As always, want it to be cool to the touch before we start to peel back that carrier sheet. I talk with my hands a lot. I'm sorry, y'all. To be fair, when I'm doing these kinds of projects and you can't see my face, my hands in the frame is the only part of me that you can see when I'm talking. So, yeah. All right, it's cool to the touch, and as you can see, the iron-on is sticking to the piece of wood. So that's what we want. We can go ahead and start peeling back that carrier sheet. I always like to go over things like wood, metal, cardstock with my scraper before I actually start to peel them up. I find that a little extra pressure really helps to bond everything. Once that's done, we can start. Now you can see right there, right where that S is, that is where the sticker was that I peeled off, and I thought I had gotten all the adhesive off. I even used, some rubbing alcohol, some gooey gone, but obviously there was enough residue that it just didn't make a difference. So we're going to go ahead, swirl this baby around, come at it from another angle. Sometimes that works better. Instead of coming from the bottom, let's try coming from the top. The other thing you can do is start to cut away that carrier sheet so that you have less to deal with. So, man, that guy swivels a lot. You can see the different discoloration right there. And that is just showing where it's not paint under there, it is adhesive. So if this sign had no adhesive on it, we would be good to go across the entire sign. You can see as we're pulling the carrier sheet up that none of the other pieces bonded directly to the wood are having any issue whatsoever. Go slow, that way if there are any issues like with that adhesive, and you can avoid ripping the iron-on, because if I hadn't been paying attention at the bottom, we could have ripped that S clear off. All right, so we're going to see if pulling from the top will get a better separation of carrier sheet and adhesive and leave that paint in place, or if we're going to have to do touch-up paint. And since I'm Betsy from the future, I can already tell you we have to do touch-up paint. Go ahead and cut off that carrier sheet. Perfect. Now we're going to go from the left side. Slow, 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 especially with pieces like this where there's lots of little flowers, there's lots of little butterflies, the script is very swirly, there's lots of moving pieces to this design. So slow is always the name of the game. Working our way across. As you can see, there's no other issues. It's just that one spot of adhesive. Why people insist on putting stickers on pieces, I never know. All right, so here I'm going to see if I can get it to pull up from the other side while leaving that paint in place. Not having much luck, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off as well. Sometimes when you're having trouble with a specific spot, just minimizing the amount of excess material like the carrier sheet makes a big difference. So literally just cutting away from everything with that center portion. Perfect. So right from that E to the S. All right, so voila, fixed. I went ahead and cut this out. You can see I have painted that spot, and there is no issues with the iron-on that has bonded directly to the wood. The carrier sheet simply pulled up the paint that was on top of the adhesive. Not ideal, but as you can see, really no problem. The sign still looks perfect. It's still usable, and we just had to do a little bit of touch-up paint to make it work. So here are some close-ups, and you can see that spot a little closer. But in the future, if you're doing a wooden sign, make sure that any adhesive spots are MIA or completely removed as much as possible. You'll have much better luck with your iron-on. All right, ready for my favorite little design, my favorite little sign, my favorite little project? Metal, baby. We are doing metal. So our SVG for this little sign is an adorable carrot patch design that I picked up in the Access Library, and we are going to put it right on this metal sign. I love putting iron-on metal. It just looks crisp and clean and sassy. It also is great for canisters and other projects. There's just so many fun metal blanks that you can put iron-on on. I also really like to layer infusible ink and iron-on metal. Talk about clean. Either way, we start out this part the same as everything else. We're making sure everything is square, lined up to the metal. Make sure that it is even on both sides. Once you put iron-on down, it is bonded. It's not moving. You cannot shift it. It's not a sticker. You can't peel it back up and readjust it. So make sure that you, measure twice, cut once, as they say with wood projects. It's the same concept. Make sure everything is where you want it the first time. Put that heat-resistant tape down to hold it in place. I don't know what I would do without this stuff. I know it's for infusible ink, but I use it for so many projects. And little tip, if you haven't caught on, I keep mine on a tape dispenser when you're working one-handed. It's still not perfect, but it does make life a lot easier. You can always pre-cut little pieces as well, but I never think that far ahead. All right, so what we are going to do is I've got my Easy Press and my mini Easy Press heated up. I thought I was going to use the mini, but I ended up deciding to use my big Easy Press 2. I have it set at 305 and 30 seconds, which are the t-shirt settings, because I'm going to do the t-shirt. I just did it in this video. But instead of 30 seconds, we are going to press this for 15 seconds. Metal conducts heat a lot better than fabric, so you don't need to hold it down quite as long. Perfect. Pick it back up. Couple more seconds might have worked better. It is hard to say, but as you can see, that upper right-hand corner is still up. So I'm just going to hit those with my mini Easy Press. I would probably do about 20 seconds on this sign if I was redoing it with my big Easy Press. But in lieu of that, I am simply heating up everything that needed a little bit more luck with my mini Easy Press. Perfect. All right, once again, I'm going to use my scraper tool to really bond that iron-on down onto the metal. You want to do this while the iron-on is still warm. Once it's cooled, it's kind of in place. So you want to do it while it's still warm, and we're simply scraping for even pressure from the inside out to make sure there's no air bubbles, to make sure everything's bonded down. And then we will leave this to cool before we start to peel that carrier sheet back. Again, metal really retains heat, so it will take a while. All right, so once we start to peel it back, you will see that this baby is probably the cleanest of all 5 projects, probably the easiest of all 5 projects, and it looks so good. There were no issues with this project. I didn't have to repaint anything. I didn't have any adhesive problems like with the leather. Of course, there's always going to be small issues with any project, even when you've done them a million times. Sometimes, things just happen. But for the most part, the more projects you do, the less problems you have, and you'll learn which projects you like. I really like doing things on metal because they just look so nice. Same with t-shirts, After doing 8 million t-shirts, I very rarely have any issues with iron-on on my t-shirts anymore. Kind of learn as you go. Perfect. Look how cute that is. Peter Rabbit's carrot patch. All right, so I'm going to give y'all some close-up shots of this baby. He is so cute. I cannot wait to go put this up by my front door. All right, so last but not least, our fifth material, of course, is cardstock or paper, and we're going to be making a few extra fun pieces to wrap this all up. So enjoy the metal sign, and I'll be back in a second to walk you through cardstock. All right, y'all. We've got a couple pieces for this little project. We are doing iron-on directly on cardstock, and these babies are going to be layers of cardstock to make drink stirrers and a cute little cake topper. So as you can see, we have multiple colors for this design. We're using both the rose gold and the blue from that metallic sampler. So we are going to have to cut the carrier sheet a little bit, line these babies up, and layer them so that we can iron them on 2 colors, 1 layer, 1 time. We don't want to heat them up any more than we need to. The iron-on can handle being heated up multiple times, but the cardstock will have a tendency to curl the more heat you apply to it. So let's get started on our mat with our larger design, the Peach Please. We're using our mini easy press for this, all the way up, heat level 3. And we are using my brayer right there to hold the design in place. So go ahead and move the brayer. We're going to hold it down with one hand. Make sure you are very, very careful to never burn your fingers when you are working on cardstock. Start in the middle, press down, firm, even pressure, and then work your way up, work your way down, and then work your way out towards the outside. Always smoothing, always going in easy, quick motions. And you'll move towards the other side. Once you've covered the entire design, I'm going to go ahead and move that piece off of our heat mat. And once again, we are going to use our little scraper tool trick. While that design is still hot, we're going to smooth it out, bond it down, make sure everything is ready to go. Now for this specific design, I went ahead and I simply layered the 2 designs together. So the peach had a layer of carrier sheet, and then the larger carrier sheet for the blue was over top of it. You'll see that when we peel it off in a minute. For these little peaches, I went ahead and just clipped the corners so that the 2 are not overlapping. But when you're working with 2 different layers like this, the main thing that you need to see is that the iron-on itself is touching the cardstock. If the iron-on is accidentally overlapping the carrier sheet from the other piece of iron-on, it's going to try to bond to the other carrier sheet. So you can layer carrier sheet over carrier sheet, that's fine, but your iron-on always needs to be touching the cardstock. And likewise, your easy press should ideally always be touching the carrier sheet. You're not going to necessarily burn the cardstock if you accidentally run over it with your easy press. It's not like a super hot burning iron of evilness. But as with any iron, if you hold it in one place too long, it can burn things. So, don't burn your cardstock. Make sure you're on your carrier sheet and that you are always moving, constantly moving, even pressure going from the middle to the outsides. Let's go ahead and do all of our little drink stirrers. We have 4 of them. So this is going to be the same process for each one. And then after we've heated them up, after we've bonded them down with our scraper tool, we will start to remove the carrier sheet. All right, once everything is cooled to the touch, we will start to peel back that carrier sheet. using the exact same method we have for our previous 4 materials. Go slow. Make sure you hold the iron-on down as you start to peel it back, or not really the iron-on down, you're really just holding your material down so that it doesn't curl up or go with the carrier sheet. You're separating the two. So right here, we are peeling back the top carrier sheet for our turquoise. Perfect. And then once we get this all the way off, we will remove the smaller carrier sheet for the peach. So see how that peach is still a little shiny and transparent? That's because the carrier sheet that we layered is still on it. So go ahead and slowly peel that baby up. This one's really bonded down, and I'm trying not to curl the cardstock because it's cardstock, so if you curl it, it will no longer be super straight. There we go. Got to get your head in the game. That always helps. All right, that top leaf was over the carrier sheet just a little bit, so I'm just using my head and the camera power to make sure it is pushed down and bonded to the cardstock. There we go. Much better. Let's go ahead and remove the carrier sheets for our little tiny peaches. At first, I just cannot resist putting the layers together here. I want to see how they look. Spoiler alert, they look awesome. For this project, we will use some 1/4-inch foam tape to pop all the layers together and to insert our little bamboo skewers. So don't forget to go check out that video if you want to see the full tutorial. In the meantime, we will finish all of our little pieces here, turn off that easy press, and then I will show you an overall look at all 5 projects iron on 5 different materials. I hoped that this helped you in your iron-on journey, as cliche as that sounds. I love working with iron-on. You can make such amazing projects. And I just love, I'm working on a peach-themed tablescape. How many peach-themed things do I need to run out and buy, But for a couple minutes of time, I can make my own drink stirrers and cake topper with materials I already have, and they'll look super cute on my table. I love that. I love that I can make these things myself and then use them. And when I'm done with them, if I don't need them ever again, they were just cardstock and iron-on, It's not a huge deal if I only use them a few times, as opposed to if I went out and bought ceramic pieces of some kind to go on the table. So I think they're a great way to use what you have for things that you love. And I cannot wait to show you how everything turns out. So I hope you liked this project. If you did, I will see you in the next one. Don't forget, over the next 5 weeks, I will be releasing each individual tutorial for these 5 projects. So if you want to see one in more detail, don't worry, it's coming your way. I will see you next week. Bye, y'all.